guys, how's everyone doing? Want to talk a little bit about gun control and some of the worst atrocities that have happened in the last century. Has a big thing to do with gun control and lack of being able to obtain firearms and guns and adequate self-defense weapons and stuff. So there's a definite, you can see a coalition between the two, or the three. Mother of all stats, the human cost of gun control ideas. The government, states, targets, civilians killed, Ottoman Turkey, 1915 through 17, Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, occupied Europe, China, nationalist, China Red, Guatemala, Uganda, this is some of the more recent ones, and Rwanda is up to 1994. Most of the gun legislation at these times was similar to what Germany had, and they had some pretty strict legislation about gun laws. I mean, you could obtain a weapon, but you'd have to state what you're using it for, why you have it. This is a search that I did, images for self-protection, survival, defense items. Okay, I want you to look at what all is on here. A lot of stabbing weapons, cutting weapons, guns, pistols, and bats, mace, all kinds of stuff. Your basic self-defense stuff. And this doesn't seem to be leaning towards one way of self-defense or another. All of these things can help preserve your life. Survival. I've seen handguns and AR-15s here. Knives is probably the biggest thing, which the Jews were not able to have any kind of a blade of longer than so many inches. But that's self-protection, survival, defense items, and that's what you get. Here's some images of Soviet Union, 1924 disarmament, which they didn't really have to disarm them anyways, because in that time period, we're talking in Soviet Union, they had guns mass produced for military. The regular guy didn't really have the capability even getting a firearm, unless it was an old shotgun or something like that to hunt with and to keep his sheep from being eaten up by the wolves and stuff. But one of the biggest things that they did is starve the Ukrainians out. I mean, that whole thing was been going on for a long time. But there's reports where the farmers used all kinds of things to try to retaliate. I mean, they used all they could. It was obvious, though, that they didn't have firearms at their disposal. But here's some of the Nazi Weapons Act of 1938. All citizens who wished to purchase firearms had to register with Nazi officials and have a background check. Presumed German citizens were hostile, and thereby exempted Nazis from the gun control laws, gave Nazi unrestricted power to dictate what kind of firearms could or could not be owned by private persons. So it's giving one political power entity total authority to say who gets it and who doesn't get it. And of course, you're going to have all the policemen and government agents get the best, and the peasants, if you will get the single shot muzzle loader or the single shot double barrel shotgun, something like that. Here's some stats. Here's another page with stats on it. Ottoman Turkey, Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, occupied Europe. Here's another one. But like I say, a lot of these were due to a lot of people just didn't have the firearms. They didn't have the money that it costs to go and buy one, and it costs a lot of money in fees, and then to get these paperwork and licenses and stuff too. They made sure the wealthy could get it, but it was out of the reach of the poor. They had to deal with illegal weaponry and such as that. And in the United States, we've had the right to bear arms since our country's existence, which gives us a great advantage. The United States has produced some of the best firearms in the world, especially during the 1800s time period, on a mass production scale. And before that, everything had to be handmade by a blacksmith, and if something broke, it had to be made, and it was very, very hard to do and to keep up with and deal with. But I think that it was basically the Civil War that made sure everybody had a gun, and they were at that time starting to catch up with the cartridge and everything like that, and the revolvers that you didn't have. It wasn't a black powder. It was a 6 cartridge revolver, Gatling guns and stuff like that. And they mass produced. They had a lot left over after the war. They got rid of a lot of muzzle loaders and stuff, but a lot of other weapons were made to take their place. And it was, everybody had a gun for protection, for survival. But Germany had some serious gun legislation. The Russians did worse than the Germans did, as far as I'm concerned. In Uganda, genocide there, it was basically an ethnic thing. If you wasn't a Muslim, you was killed, and the Muslims were provided firearms through through their lines, through the Russians, through the Muslim Brotherhood and Al Qaeda and all those things there. The other side, they didn't get arms. They had to find what they could and obtain it where they could. The U.S. wasn't providing them with many arms at all, if any. We pretty much stayed out of their business when we should have done something to help them, give them some protection at least. And same thing with Guatemala. These people haven't really had the ability to obtain and store up firearms, just because they didn't have the money, they didn't have the ability, they didn't have the know-how, they didn't mass produce stuff. They just didn't have it. And they did have sticks and stones and knives and stuff like that. And Mao in China, Mao, he totally it was almost impossible to get a firearm outside of being issued to you by the government of China. And when you was issued the firearm, you know, most of them couldn't take them home. They had to leave them when they left. You know, when they retired their military and stuff, they left their firearms behind. They made sure that only the ones that was in the military had the firearms. The rest of the people were working with old stuff. They didn't have much of a chance. Darfur, same kind of thing. You know, these were drug warlords and stuff. They had the weapons, the firearms, and the regular guy just didn't have them. And you know, it was the inability to be able to get them is what led up to these deaths, and the inability to be able to get them when they needed them as well. The United States has just been fortunate. We've had the Civil War to keep us in guns and to keep us up with it. We had these great inventors in the late 1800s, 1900s. You know, Smith and Wesson, Colt, just a lot of them. Browning, you name it. Lots and lots of ability to produce firearms for the things that is needed. And then the Armenian genocide deal, and gun control. I mean, the same kind of deal. It's all over the place that was happening to people. But the Turkish gun control, it didn't cause the genocide. I mean, it was a problem with it, but it didn't cause it. It was definitely caused by them, by the Russian troops starving them to death. They starved these farmers when they took their land and stuff, and they didn't have the gun to begin with. So, you know, we're lucky, because if we wasn't in the United States, this could have been already done to us. Could have already been done to us. I mean, you know, disarmament cometh before death in this case. And if you don't have an arm to begin with, then you're disarmed automatically. Guatemala. And they had their civil war. Right to keep and bear arms. Relationship between gun control and genocide. Lethal weapons. Military rifles are society's life preservers. Without them, gun control can ultimately lead to mass murder. Absolutely right. We should be able to have the best, especially if it's a citizen that's called upon to defend the homeland. I mean, if the government's so afraid of its people not to be able to issue them or help them, not hinder them to be able to get a firearm. Not get them one, but, you know, don't stop them from getting one. Then don't count on your people to defend. Because if a nation is attacked, what are you gonna? How many days is it gonna take to arm all your people if you've got to go around handing out weapons and stuff? I mean, they did that whole thing in Russia when the Battle of Stalingrad. You know, they give one guy a rifle and give the other guy a bandolier of shells. And they said, you know, when the other guy drops his rifle, you pick it up and keep going. And that's the way they rolled. Plus, all the people that was in the city were locked in there, and they picked up weapons off the dead. They were fighting with a lot of German weapons, as you could imagine, because they just didn't have them. Just didn't have them. Gun control is the key to genocide. Absolutely, because there's nothing to stop them. Nothing to stop them if they want to implement, and totally take out 3/4 of their population, whatever group. If the people have arms, then they're not going to get away with it. The people are disarmed, they can do whatever. They can roll right over them. All of these places is an instance where the people did not have sufficient self-defense and firearms to help not be wiped out. So there's a lot of things that they try to do to get us. Oh, and I was just reading one of the new gun laws that just was passed a year ago or so over in Russia. It happened after a school shooting over there. So they're doing the same thing all over the place. I believe this is Ukraine resistance. Yeah, food as a weapon. Yep, they sure did. They starved them people out. And they couldn't fight back. They couldn't fight back. And they policed them. Seriously policed them. Made sure they wasn't eating the grain, because they was taking and selling the grain and buying arms and stuff for the military. Like I said, I believe Stalin did way much worse things than Hitler might have done, because he killed a lot of Jews too, and he didn't stop there. He kept on going. Other people too. In Uganda, here's some images from it. A lot of things have happened where people could have been protected, could have protected themselves a lot more better, much easier, if they'd have had a Second Amendment. If they'd have had what we have, a Second Amendment, they wouldn't have been wiped out. Genocide would not be beside their name. So, no matter what, we've got to keep the Second Amendment, guys, or else it'll be genocide on us. We know that they are seriously not wanting us to continue with our firearms, and they're going to do what they can to try to keep on pushing it, to try to keep getting them. But we got to resist as much as possible. I hope everyone's well, having a great day. God bless, good luck to us all. Never give up your guns. Second Amendment protects the first and the last. Chatty Dad 1, over now.